This feels so unreal. I can't believe that I get to interview Gary for the Avenue Mama podcast. It took a couple months to get this set up, and I just persisted. I would send him emails and I would do videos. Hi, Gary. My name's Annie. To get his attention to approve on me meeting up with him. And I do have the podcast now, and so I would love for you to come on and just talk about parenting. I know his messaging will be so important to our listeners, and he could break through them and he could get to them in a way that only Gary V can.
I think there's an enormous amount of children that would benefit dramatically from watching their mother doing what she wants to do and be happy, and in addition to her trying the best she can to balance her definition of motherhood.
I've been such a student of his. I've listened, I've implemented, I've gotten out of my own way. I feel like he does these really good ego checks, and I need all of his teachings, and I'm so excited to bring him to the podcast. I couldn't be more grateful.
I am looking to put enormous, uncomfortable amounts of pressure on parents.
Yes.
To understand that the incredible disservice that they are doing to their children, because their self-esteem is wrapped up in their children's accomplishments, is saying, I choose the opinion of my contemporaries or my parents and friends over my own child's actual happiness, is unacceptable. If I leave this earth with just accomplishing denting the conversation around insecure, selfish behavior around parenting, I will make the world a much better place than I came into.
And I cannot wait to share what he has to say to the Avenue Mamas about just getting started. And this is where I record. Just creating impact, making it happen. I get to interview Gary Vaynerchuk tomorrow. So I'm outside of the library in the parking lot getting my notes, doing the hard stuff that is repetitive and making people tap into their real gifts and sharing it with the world.
Can you imagine that there's so many women right now sitting and listening who are creative as hell, who can get their creative energy out, check, they're not doing it,
absolutely,
and finish off paying the $737 in debt that they have that they're collecting 10% interest on, that's still hanging over their head, all in the next month by just listening to us and posting their content that they make, whatever they make, on Etsy or Facebook Marketplace. That is remarkable. And one of those women will actually go on and build a $10 million art brand.
Yeah. That's it.
That is it.
That's it.
That's called the internet. That's called why I wrote Crush It 10 years ago. It's real. Hey, Avenue Mama, you got this.
Boom, boom. Gary, thank you so much for talking to my community, the Avenue Mama community. We are a group of moms who are looking to get out of our own way, living a fulfilled life. This podcast is about mindset, motherhood, and mompreneurship. So 3 things that we could talk about. So for mompreneurship, I did a poll recently with my audience, and I said, what's stopping you from starting something? Okay, and I've been listening to you since probably 2012. Like I said, my kids are 3 and 5, and for me, it was a choice to start something because I wanted to be with them more. Okay, so I was a pharmacist, very random person to be into photography, and now this. So a lot of the moms were saying, 70% of them said that they're overwhelmed with the idea of starting something, and 30% said they feel guilty. So can you speak to that about starting something when you feel both things and you have a baby, yet you want to figure out a way to stay home and contribute?
So one of the things I most love about my career is I try to stay in my lane and talk about things I know, always from a perspective of what have I lived and how do I scale it. And so I'm going to answer this very carefully because I think it's super naive to be a man and actually understand even and I could be wrong about this because I'm bad at science, but intuitively the thought of this person growing inside of you and then the level of guilt is fascinating to me.
It really is.
Because it feels very right to me. Like, meaning when I say right, what I mean by that is without being able to understand, I understand. I'll tell you why. I actually think one of the biggest unlocks to being someone who's selfless is to be someone who's selfish. And that seems so counterintuitive. And so I believe that. And I believe that so much of my selflessness and so much of what attracts people to me comes out of my deep conviction to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's where my framework for this answer comes from.
Okay.
I believe that for many mothers, they're coming from such an incredible place of guilt because they don't want to take away time, energy, love, interaction with their children. And my belief is that if they're listening to your show, that they want something else in and above what they have, which is amazing. And whether you don't or do, that's you, which means that it will corrode inside of them over time. And at the end of the day, there's a subconscious resentment that will be created toward their children, which is far less healthy than them going and showing their kids how to live versus telling them how to live. I think there's an enormous amount of children that would benefit dramatically from watching their mother doing what she wants to do and be happy, and in addition to her trying the best she can to balance her definition of motherhood.
100%. You said something in an interview that almost made me cry because I'm the product of that immigrant parents. Pharmacy was their idea, and I felt very obedient. Like, I had to, thank you, Mom and Dad, we were refugees, do the whole thing.
Of course.
But I hated it. I hated it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get out. And I didn't get out soon enough until I became a mom. And I started this community, and I'm really dedicating this community to somebody that I lost. 2017, I lost my father and my father-in-law. And the one that... The same year, 2007. 7 people in 1 year. And 7 people. And I lost my 46-year-old nanny. And she really is the fire why I started Avenue Mama, because here I am, 2017.
She passed at 46.
She passed at 46. Single mom, worked 2 jobs. And in talking to her, so many unmet goals, so many unmet dreams, so many, regret. When my kid, yes, I know you talk about, let's go to a senior center and talk about regret. And here I am losing, she's in a coma. And I'm like, I can't live with regret. And so I went all in on my photography, which is, I've been in the entrepreneur space since 2004. And to be honest with you, my husband's right.
Question?
Yeah.
Did you do that after your dad passed?
The photography part? No, earlier. Avenue Mama after he passed.
Understood.
Because the impact, he was a pediatrician, created so much impact in our Vietnamese community.
Yeah.
And even, in pharmacy school, I'm like, Dad, I want to quit. And he's like, you can't, you're going to give me a heart attack. I mean, the amount of guilt was real. And I'm the
Very
7th
real.
child.
Because, wow.
Yeah.
Which, I can't imagine what number 1 was dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just want to stay on this because I'm passionate about it. I apologize. Yeah. We have to change this conversation.
Yeah.
I am looking to put enormous, uncomfortable amounts of pressure on parents.
Yes.
To understand that the incredible disservice that they are doing to their children, because their self-esteem is wrapped up in their children's accomplishments, and the fact that your dad, when he says something like that, and rest in peace, and every other parent that does it, is saying, I choose the opinion of my contemporaries or my parents and friends over my own child's actual happiness, is unacceptable and must. If I leave this earth with just accomplishing denting the conversation around insecure, selfish behavior around parenting, I will make the world a much better place than I came into.
There's a mom in my preschool, and I was going to set up a play date, and she's like, she's got violin. I'm like, she's 4. And she's like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my brother, who's a doctor, she has violin lessons, and so I think that's what to do. And I was like, no, we're putting these unmet goals, unmet dreams, which is why I want to have the ability to talk about this. And I'm sure you don't remember when I met you, but it was back in May, and I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast because this is all new. This is my new gig, right? Like, really speaking about, like, I'm older than you too, by the way. I'm 44.
You look much younger than me.
And
you look like my daughter.
We can pivot. What the fuck? I have a farm D, but I don't use it. And because of you, I used to lead with it because that was ego. That was insecurity. I had to say, I'm educated. But now it's not anywhere because it doesn't matter, right? What matters more is that I pivoted, that I do a podcast out of my daughter's tent.
I don't know what else to say. Everybody who's listening right now, Just
What
because
are
you
we
have a
waiting
3 and
for?
5-year-old and you're 51 because you started having kids late because you did a great career or you were ambitious or you're doing your thing or didn't find love or didn't want to, or whatever the fuck reason, you're 51 and a 3 and 5-year-old and you're like, oh shit, it's going to take me another 15 years and I'm going to be 66, you know, or 68 or however old you are before I am like, they're off to school.
No.
If I, first of all, no, to your point, you'll take care of that. I'm going to go a different place. 68 gives you 20 years to do shit. I don't know what else to say. I don't know why people think, you know, like it's crazy to me that I'm this Pied Piper that is like surprising people. Like, why don't people talk to 68-year-olds who are just starting businesses? Why do people not talk to 68-year-olds who just got out of a 40-year marriage and they got divorced because they never really liked each other, but they did it for the public, for their kids, and you watch those two 68-year-olds then go live life for 20 years and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Like, aren't there a bunch of 40-year-olds right now listening who know that their mom's super unhappy and they're so didn't want their parents to divorce because there was stigma, but they can't believe a year later that they ever imposed that feeling towards their mom and they wish their mom did it fucking 40 years ago? Like, aren't people actually living?
Yes.
Like, and so for me, the one great gift I was given, for sure, is I'm willing to talk about truth because I'm not worried about judgment. When I say everything I just said, I don't care about the comment in your podcast thread that says he's delusional or easy for him to say because he's a guy or whatever the easy thing to say about what I say is. I want to get to the heart of the matter issues because, to your point, the reason you almost cried or you did do it because it takes somebody to say the truth to start a process. It takes somebody to say the truth to start a process, whether that is some of the incredible things that we put humans on a pedestal for, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, or something that will never be known about a family of 5 in Iowa where the grandfather was dying on the bed and whispered something to his daughter and that changed the trajectory of bad generational behavior in a family because she actually got inspired, changed the way she raised her kids, which created a flow underneath and eventually liberated that family's dynamics of their framework.
So a few years ago, you've always talked about entrepreneurship, you know, it's never cool like it is now.
Yes.
And then now you're like, ooh, self-awareness.
Yes.
Because not everybody's made for it and it should be.
Yes.
If I'm listening to this, how would I know if I'm cut out for this?
By
The
trying.
market dictate?
Yeah, 100%. That's what's great about my framework, I think, which is like no stigma in losses. Go and try. And a year from now, if nobody's listening to this podcast, you're like, okay, either I have to do something drastically.
1,000 people already.
That's a lot. No, really, it's a lot.
I know. I'm so thankful.
But back to the point for your audience, not directly to you. If you're listening right now, if you go and try to start a direct-to-consumer meal business or a podcast or an Instagram account around your passion of surfing as a stay-at-home mom, which is kind of like actually your truth, but maybe not something everyone's thinking about, the market will tell you, don't listen to your stupid husband. Don't listen to your mom's historic point of view. Do your thing. And then guess what? Either you're going to be right or they're going to be right. But when they go, nah, we were right, that was a stupid idea, know that that's going to hurt a lot less than being 84 and never trying in the first place.
Absolutely.
And more importantly, when mom and your husband go, nah, tell them to go fuck themselves. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm being dead serious.
No,
like, allowing people's opinions to dictate your behavior has to stop. It has to.
You know where the guilt
stop.
comes in? You know what I hear all the time from the community? I used to bring in a lot more money than I do now.
Great.
And so I'm like,
money is dick
I
shit.
know, I know.
Like, so sorry that
I'm
you
with
guys
you.
can't buy a
I'm
crystal
with
vase
you.
or a better vacation.
I'm with you.
Well, listen,
with
you
you.
and your partner have to make that decision. Like, what? Like, cool, you brought in more money, but you're less happy.
Exactly.
Either you and your husband can wrap your head around that, or you can't. But I have empathy for that.
Yeah.
But like, we have to, as a society, put happiness over money.
Absolutely.
Like, what, were you gonna hide your unhappiness with another fucking fur coat, or like an extra trip, or like a more expensive nanny, or like, or what other guilt cliche things do we want to go into? Your kid can't go to the sleepaway camp that everybody else. Like, what? Like, we need to get insular, and like that makes sense. I understand why you're dealing with that. But what were you supposed to do? Be poisoned inside for the rest of your life?
Right. No, and so we have the runway But a lot of women don't have that runway.
Anybody can have a runway if they change what they spend money on.
True. So you have $100 and your mom listening to this, where would you start?
Flipping.
Okay.
I can't stop thinking about it. Here's why. If we're talking in the frame, I've already established happiness. Happiness is where I'd go with $100.
Yeah.
But, and listen, there are so many people that we all know, that we all went to school with, that are living the simplest quote unquote lives. I love people of affluence. They have such funny talk. They sit around and they say things, I live in that circles. Like, oh man, my friend Karen, God, she seems so happy. You know, her husband works 9 to 5 as a trucker. She never left our town. Here I am in New York or LA or San Francisco. She never fucking left. And like, man, she seems so happy, as they're baffled. Meanwhile, they're just happy.
Just happy.
Because guess what? They don't want to buy or need to buy, or you know, a $700,000 home or have a $40,000. Like, really, is your vacation at Amanyara so much more important than being happy the other 360 days a year?
Well, D-Rock had an Instagram post. He said, you know, a $30 watch works just the same as a $3,000 watch. And yeah, I actually was like, I was going to buy a new outfit for today, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going
Your
to rock
outfit's
this
fucking
out.
fire. Like,
No, but I think
here's what I
moms
would say about
will
that.
put $25 towards their kids at a jamboree class, but won't spend $25 to do X, Y, and Z, whether it's, you know, self-care, whether it's investing in a book.
Because it's judgment. The reason they're doing the $25 jamboree is because Karen's gonna know. Why didn't you know? Karen and Susan are doing it too. This is a very important part.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of women and men that would do that for their kid because they believe in jamboree. Or there's a lot of people that don't agree with D-Rock or me and actually love the craftsmanship of a $3,000 watch, and they grew up with a grandfather that loved watches, and looking at it every day means amazing amounts.
Yeah.
But what is stereotypical and what is in the air is the amount of mothers and fathers that do things based on other mothers and fathers. Who wants to be the mom in a group of 6 moms? The poorest person in the neighborhood is always dealing with all sorts of dark shit. Because they overspent on their home, and they're now in that same neighborhood, but they don't have the other cash for the same vacations, cars, and activities that everybody else has, yet their children are in that framework. And forget about even if they're as awesome as I'm hoping they are and they don't care about their neighbors. What about when your fucking daughter runs into the room and starts crying that everybody's going to skateboarding school and
Everybody
she can't?
has an American Girl doll. All that
right.
stuff.
That's right.
Your daughter's how old now?
10.
Did she go through that, like the higher end toys or anything like that?
It's no, but that's also because she lives in an environment where her parents can provide a lot of fucking things. Like, she's gonna go through the reverse, which is like at some point we're gonna have to pull the carpet, and she's gonna deal with like some real like fuck. Like, what? Wait a minute, this is not the rules you created before. And it's like, yeah, you were 9. You know, now you're 16. Like, we need to start prepping you, because if you're 22 and you're on mommy and daddy's payroll, you're finished.
For the value of my moms, do you give your kids allowances, or do you pay for them to do chores? I'm just so curious.
At this point, we're taking the approach of cold shower. They're very young, and what I'm doing right now is I'm okay with pulling the plug on them cold at 13. I could be right, I could be wrong. You know, my parents, my mom and dad definitely are judging me. They're like, you should be introducing it a little bit along the way.
Interesting. Well,
My point of view is I'll buy you everything.
just don't ask.
No, I'll buy you everything.
Okay.
I'm going to spoil the fuck out of you until 12, 13, 14. And then I'm going to go completely the other way and say, now you're completely off the payroll in perpetuity. You want to get a job? Cool. You want to sell all the stuff that you've amassed from mommy and daddy on eBay? Cool. You are now going to figure out how to survive. I don't believe in half pregnant. I'm a contradiction. All in, all out. So I'm unbelievably comfortable knowing that they're 10 and 7 and they really can't have a job yet. And they haven't shown me, though my son's shown me more than my daughter, maybe the ability to be similar to me, where I went after
Lemonade
it early.
stand, right.
But that's okay, because I also don't want my kids to be entrepreneurs. I want them to be themselves. I also am not, but if my daughter or son are going to be nonprofit, higher ed, altruistic monsters, I'm not going to pay for that. Like, if they want to do that, that's amazing. I'm comfortable with my kids making $49,000 a year and me eventually giving away all my money to charity. Because they're not entitled to anything.
Yeah.
When they're my kids, they're entitled to everything. Meaning, I believe in collateral financial opportunity. Meaning, when my kids are 29 and 26, and I go on a vacation to Africa, because now I want to see a fucking elephant.
So far.
I will pay for them and their family happily, because they're coming under the guise of being my children.
Okay.
I'll pick up the tab for dinner. But I'm not going to buy their fucking house. I'm not going to...
Pay for college?
You know what?
If they want to go.
Hopefully they don't. But if they do, probably.
Okay.
Mainly because I feel, back to guilt, my parents did that for me. I'll pay for college, but they can do what I did, which is never go to class. I feel like that's the last piece that I'm kind of willing to play with. Here, actually, here's an interesting part. I'm evolving my debate because it's early. I'm not going to force them to go to school. So, my parents forced me to go to school. I wanted to not go to college. So I feel real comfortable that they paid because they wanted that public acceptance from their other immigrant friends. Fine. I'm not going to force my kids to go. Now, if they come with some dumb shit of like, hey, Dad, so since you're not forcing me, I hope kids are listening to this in the future. Okay, Dad, because you're not forcing me, like, so that's like $40K a year. Like, hey, give me $160K for the next 4 years. Yeah. I'm going to say, fuck you. First of all, I don't even want you to go. And second of all, no. So that's where I'm at on this.
Yeah.
Go
Definitely.
ahead,
I know
we're fine. Keep going.
Yeah,
I'll be fine. Push the call.
Okay.
Push the call. Go ahead.
So I'm exactly the product. I've had decades of resentment towards my parents. Until the self-awareness, till I can flip it and be like, how did I get the good out of it?
By the way, please say that again, because something that I think you're saying something very smart.
Okay.
And something I'm passionate about. I talk a lot about the resentment parent thing.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
But I keep bringing up the other part, which is you didn't have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't strong enough to go against them.
You listened to what they wanted.
Right.
Where I really get upset is the kids that are 32 right now and saying, well, my parents paid for everything, so I'm not capable. You didn't need to take the money.
Yeah.
You didn't need a BMW when you were 23 to look cool.
Yeah. They didn't pay. They paid for all 7 of us to go to college and not all our grad
That's what I
school.
could sense, which is why I'm giving both nuances.
Yeah, but I definitely, and I played that victim card for so long, and then I got, into self-development, and I was like, no, that was my choice. I just didn't go up to them. I didn't fight. I didn't choose to be.
You didn't fight.
I didn't fight, and so
that's on you.
It's not a bad thing to be a pharmacist. Fine, but now.
You know where I apologize.
Yeah.
What's so exciting to vibe with you?
Huh.
Both like after the eyes and stuff, and right now. I just actually realized this. I am so on it with this life is long thing. Mm-hmm. Do you know how much more fun it is to be able to accept accountability when you're 44, when you know you have another amazing 44 in front of you?
It is fun.
When you think you're 44 and you missed it, which is what we're taught. We fucked up our 20s and 30s and now it's over. Then you can't take on accountability because you're so unhappy that you're actually deploying resentment. When you realize that you have your whole life in front of you at 44, all of a sudden, all the transgressions that your parents deployed can be wiped. You can take on your part of the... No kid... I mean, listen, there's some extreme stuff, abuse and things of that nature, but the stuff I talk about, it took 2 to tango.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wasn't strong enough to go against them, and I felt obedient, and one thing, pharmacy got me out of the house. I commuted in college. I had to live at home. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just finally live, right? But then the self-awareness now, like, okay, that was my choice. And when I became a mom, even more so. So now I'm like you, like, I don't care what the fuck they do. I just want to be happy. Like, just be happy. And I want to, what your mom does, like complimenting you for 2 weeks for opening the door when you were 9 and just making you feel like the best person ever, but yet still held firm.
Accountability.
To all that.
Yeah, like you've got to figure it out. Like, and this is what's so amazing, right? My mom is, obviously you know this, never on my content, super quiet, and like in some weird way, I think the Gary Vee phenomenon is, if it's a phenomenon, that's a pretty audacious thing, but like my awareness growing exponentially, and a lot of people listening to me, I'm starting to realize, like, in my unbelievable admiration and love for my mom, I kind of almost feel like I'm just playing in between. I've kind of started to realize, oh, I'm just a microphone. I actually don't exist. I've decided to live my life as a microphone, a megaphone for my mom. My mom's not going to tell everybody how to do this. She's insecure around her accent and many other things that immigrants that come to this country in their 20s and 30s have. She's quiet by nature in other ways. She doesn't want to be in the front. However, what she did and how she goes about it is the answer. So I am actually now going to take that, and all I'm doing is giving that same advice, taking the best of both my mom and dad, because it really is that
That's
truth.
what it is, yeah.
And that's how I'm kind of almost starting to go in that life. I'm like, oh, I'm just the megaphone of my parents.
When you parent, what percentage of you is mom versus dad?
If I really, this
And I know you parent differently, I get it.
No.
But
I'm
for
sorry,
each
what am
child,
I?
when you parent
Oh,
Xander, and,
Yes.
yeah. So how do you show up? Are you like 90% mom, kind, overly
I'm probably
empathetic?
following the tracks of my life. I'm probably right now disproportionately my mom, and sooner than later I'll be more like my dad. Much like what I went through,
Yes,
which is the
okay.
first 14 years of my life was only mom, and then the next, kind of 15 years of my life was heavily dad.
You're bagging ice for $2.
Yeah. My dad did things for me that absolutely allowed me to be the enigma that I am for somebody who is such a self-promoter, gift of gab, sizzle guy. I'm convinced, which is tough to say out loud, that the things I most despise in people with charisma, I actually am, and that the parenting is what did it. That I was willing to lie to sell. And that would have manifested as me with girls, and that would have manifested me with product. And I know this because I did it. Because at 14 and 15, I lied to sell wine. I just did.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I got lucky and came into a father who looks at embellishment as a cardinal one strike, if you embellish to my dad, if D-Rock called my dad and said, right now, Sasha, you'll never believe this, 80,000 people just watched that clip, and the actual amount of people that watched that clip was 78,000, my dad would never trust D-Rock again.
Wow.
Yeah, so think about, I'm being
Wow.
serious. Think
Wow.
about what I'm talking about.
Wow.
Yes, we're talking about extremity around. So I went from gift of gab, fucking what some people think I am when they first see 1 minute video,
Yeah.
to being suffocated
I was gonna say that word, suffocated. Did you feel suffocated?
in a great way. At the time, it was fear. I was fearful to embellish or lie to my dad. So it just started getting me into practice to not, which ironically had a countercultural move too. It made me not to everybody else, but made me to him ironically at times as well, because I didn't want to deal with the ramifications of delusional suffocation.
Got it.
Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
I saw the value of it, so I started transforming over the next 15 years to the world. But to my dad, his hyper overreactions conditioned me to actually want to not tell him things. So it went from lying to not telling. Because I wanted to navigate, because I also wanted to protect everything around me, employees, our vendors, our customers. I knew that he has
You read the situation.
I read the situation.
Yeah.
But ironically, it made me have to be less transparent with him to make it palpable
Yeah,
for the
and
world.
and then that translates.
Do you want to do the card thing? Because if you do, we have to go now. If not, if you feel
No.
cozy,
No,
let's do it here.
Let's just
Okay,
wait.
keep going.
No, that's
Keep
okay.
going. Let's do 5 more minutes then.
So I've heard your beef, for the lack of a better word, on funnels and opt-ins and sales funnels and stuff. In the world of trying to figure out how to
Monetize.
not monetize, how to speak. No, not monetize. For me, like, you were in Singapore, and I was like, that's a really great audience for this podcast because they're Asian and they're going through that parenting
Yes.
thing. And so, no, it's just to turn a cold audience to a warm audience, to really nurture them in this conversation. But I know you're not a fan of that, so can you
Wait
speak
a
on
minute.
that?
I'm not a fan of people doing top of funnel behavior to sell people services that aren't valuable
Okay,
and sell against fear.
okay, yeah.
Like if you created a product of a .com that was a $999 ebook of how to solve your problem as an Asian with your parents, and then in that ebook was basically just 87 pages of words and other pieces of
Yeah, no
content
value. Yeah,
that you
yeah.
found on the internet, that doesn't make me feel good.
Gotcha, okay.
But you know, I'm thrilled if you're trying to get people to listen to your podcast or even go to your conference that is $1,000 a head. But I want you to not, like, what I'm most proud of is I don't sell fear. You know,
with the, like, do you mean like the giant countdown clock, like you only one spot left, like all that stuff?
All
right?
of it. No, you know, listen, I like hacking. I'm a salesman. I love doing what I did yesterday with my text platform of like, use the Gary Vee podcast. Like, I don't like, here's what I don't like. I don't like the countdown clock that goes to 0. And then the next day I'm like, but wait, we've added 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd rather just have the countdown clock end 2 minutes or later. Like, I don't like tactics that are based on fear. What I really don't like is
and manipulation.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Look, I could build a crazy manipulative machine. My ability to have a fucking $100 million company based on coaching is very real.
Yeah.
The amount of people that would pay me $5,000 a month to be part of the virtual one, $25,000 a month being part of the get together once a month one, and $1 million a year to be part of the personal, you've got my cell phone, I see you once a month, is real. I know it's real because people ask me to do it. I don't want that. And not that there's anything wrong. I don't like to judge so much, so I hate it. But here's what I would say. And this, you're going to get this because I already know you. Just sell something you believe in and then do whatever the fuck you want. Because too many people sell something they don't believe in. They just do it because it's where they can make the most money.
Now, I would say sell something that solves someone's problem, makes an impact at the cross-section of that person willing to pay for that solution.
I think that's right. But that, you just talked about value.
Value.
Which is right, which is different than what people are doing, which is they're poking at insecurities and selling them diet pills in the form of information. Most of the information products that are being sold, funnels, is going deeply at an insecurity and selling them a get quick fix plan.
Sure. How to get 10,000 followers in a half a day.
Or I'm your guru. I'm gonna solve this. You know, and I don't like that. Just don't take advantage of people. The amount of people that sell something, like, I'm petrified of taking money from people. If I don't, like, that's why I like selling like wine and sneakers. My whole thing on that is like, well, if you're gonna buy wine first of all, Empathy Wines is better than the $20 wine at Bevmo and like and Total Wine. So like that feels good.
Yeah.
And if you were gonna buy wine anyway, and you've been listening to me for 6 years and got a ton of value, then that's awesome. Versus I've been giving all this content and it was really for the sake of getting you to pay me $1,800 a month. That's what people are doing. That's the cliche funnel work. So that's why I like a conference, because it's just like sell tickets if they want to come, awesome.
And we need it in real life stuff, especially moms.
There's
that's
also,
what
there's
I
also
have
this one thing, which is when you're making content that is actually seeded in the fact that you ultimately want to convert them into a paying monthly subscriber, you're already vulnerable to the purity of your content. The reason I think I'm giving out the content that I'm giving is it's strictly built for admiration. When you have somebody who admires you, predicated on the fact that they brought you value,
the show would be here
for free. Think about it. Think about it. To his point when he made the intro the first time, there's much fancier people in culture that go on there. But the reason I think I can end up being the fanciest is only Oprah in the last 2 to 3 decades had the luxury that the TV show was paying her, so she didn't need to monetize her audience.
Never thought of that.
Is why she became Oprah. Whereas other people have been successful, whether Tony Robbins or others, had to find a way to monetize their audience because they didn't have a subsidizing income from a television show or from VaynerMedia. See?
Yeah.
And I don't judge Tony or anybody else. It's that Oprah became the biggest because she didn't need to take a penny from the audience, which allowed her to give the audience the most she could give.
Well, I know you don't listen to a lot of, and I know you don't watch TV, but I will say it's worth listening to The Making of Oprah, or does anyone know the title of that podcast? How she became, and it was fascinating. And she did do a lot of stuff in the back in order to fight through the topics that she wanted to talk about. So she did, so she did all that for sure.
But again, at its macro.
Right, and she
as
didn't
a gangster businesswoman, she made her money in a different way, which allowed her to have a different relationship with her audience.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah.
It's not super complicated. That was her position that is different from the historic people that sell books and seminars and conferences and islands and all that. That's why she won. And that's why I'm going to win. I don't want to make my money on my audience, right? Just like Oprah has a book or things of that nature that she had, or book club or the magazine. It's like if you're gonna read another magazine, you know. But again, there was no Oprah mastermind for 50,000 a head, and at one point she could have sold 1 trillion of those.
What do you think of those like $20,000-$30,000 masterminds?
I don't love the format. I think it changes I don't love the relationship. But guess what? And this is very important.
Yeah.
I don't get to judge. It doesn't work for me. But if it works for Joey Magoo and Sarah McGee, mazel tov. I have observed it for the last decade, and my observation is there's too many people that are willing to just take the check.
Yep.
So the filter of helping Caleb to be part of my mastermind is, can he pay the $50,000 a month? Not, is this guy view me as the anecdote and this is a lottery ticket? And what I'm really doing is it makes him feel like he's doing something. You know what my biggest fear is with my content? And we'll wrap up with this because D-Rock seems super anxious, so I must be behind. My biggest fear is that I'm so motivating by nature in the way that I communicate that people follow me and it makes them feel like they're actually doing something.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I love that I can give a spark, but I need you to take that match and point it to the bush so it goes on fire, not just hold it and it feels good when it comes out. And then you need me again tomorrow. I'm trying to motivate to action. And I'm trying to motivate to action that is for you, not for me.
Absolutely.
And that is my framework. And so that is something I think a lot about. The reason a lot of people stop following me is because the words just came out of my mouth. So you have somebody who came into the funnel, they're watching me for 6 months, and they're getting what they need. They aren't happy. They don't want to put in work. They are entitled. And they're getting this nice fix from me, 2 minutes, 20 minutes a day, and it feels like they're doing something because I'm doing something and I'm telling them to do something. But then occasionally, out of nowhere, I do what I just did for the last 3 minutes, and I look at them dead in the face and go, this isn't working. And then they go, fuck you, I'm gonna go find somebody who's not as good as you. But watching people, when I call them out in that occasional moment of content, leave me, go to the bullshit version of me, and pay that person is something I think about every day. When I go in for the kill, after I made you feel good, I made you feel real safe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that equity to now inspire you to start the podcast. And thank God there's 10 to 35% of people like you that actually go and do it. Because that becomes my legacy. That is my selfish want of impact.
Gotcha.
But for the 90 to 65% that don't, when I go in for that kill, they don't start the podcast. They jump off and they go find a fucking third-rate huckster that seems like me, and they pay that motherfucker $13,000 for their course, and they go completely because they are not ready for accountability.
Yeah. Truth. That's it. That's it. Accountability is
That is
everything.
the current state of my content world and my connection and anticipation, aspiration, and vulnerability with my audience. That rant was it. And I think about it every day. How do I provide more content and more value in getting them in to pay attention? And how can I be more thoughtful that when I put pressure on them to do something?
Can I tell you one thing that I do to motivate my the moms that I work with to get to the next step? There has to be something at stake. So for me, I know you don't talk about politics, so I'll say, okay, so Sujung, you want to pay off your credit card, so you have $100, or how much do you want to tell me that you've created in the next week? And she'll say $100. I'm like, okay, so if you don't do that, you're gonna have to pay $100 to Donald Trump. And that is my fire for my women, because we don't want to do that for the people that follow in the situation. So there has to be something at stake, which is why I think the women move, because
I got a good one for you.
Yeah.
That I want you to build on.
Okay.
A shocking amount of people that don't have money are willing to spend money in that scenario
I know.
versus doing. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
That's great, and that tactic will work for some people. My mom is the cheapest woman on earth.
Okay.
She, like me, has no interest in working out ever.
Okay.
She, after I started doing my thing, got more and more pressure for me.
Got it.
And bought some working out memberships and lessons.
Yeah.
She consistently makes up bullshit and doesn't go. And in a world where she will do things to save $8, wastes $100 multiple times
Sure.
a week.
Sure. So this woman did it. She flipped a bunch of her baby stuff, made 160. I got the report last night. And so I said, take 50 and reinvest it and do it again. Because she's like, this feels good. This feels empowering. She's got a little 3-year-old. She's in debt. And so I think that people just need to start and just
Flip.
That's one way.
Right now, the 99% of this audience that's listening to you right now who needs money to pay a bill or have a better vacation.
Or just to be able to stay at home and pay for.
Correct. Or by the way, let's talk real talk. Or not feel guilt to
feel
buy
guilt.
a new outfit because they haven't in 3 years.
No, or because it's his money. That's a big one.
Of course.
That's a huge one for moms.
All of it.
It's not our money. I don't bring in. That's how I was coming from.
I respect that. There's a million things. Every one of them has shit in their house right now that they can list on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. It scares me. I actually am completely scared that the flip economy is actually going to eat up everything. Like, I believe in it so much that I think as the education over the next decade is grown, it's going to make a humongous economic impact. I don't think people should get jobs. I don't think anybody should work at Vaynermedia. I think they should all look at their salary at Vaynermedia and start flipping that number and just go to thrift stores all day and have fun. Artistic people, more, who don't have sales DNA, when I can teach them that they can use their art skills by seeing something we can't, which is like a stone in the ground and then a piece of paint that's discounted at fucking Marshall's, and put those together and make that $9 investment, a $800 flip on eBay. Wait till the artists figure this out.
Yeah, that's good.
I know
that's
it's
real
good.
Yeah.
You know how many stay-at-home mom and dads actually are very creative?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how many moms right now could just take a piece of paper and draw something and actually sell it for $8 on Etsy?
Yeah.
It's real. Get your creative energy out and make a couple. Can you imagine that there's so many women right now sitting and listening who are creative as hell, who can get their creative energy out, check, they're not doing it,
Absolutely.
and finish off paying the $737 in debt that they have that they're collecting 10% interest on that's still hanging over their head, all in the next month by just listening to us and posting their content that they make, whatever they make, on Etsy or Facebook Marketplace. That is remarkable. And one of those women will actually go on and build a $10 million art brand.
Yeah. That's it.
That is it.
That's it.
That's called the internet. That's called why I wrote Crush It 10 years ago. It's real. All right, now I gotta go.
And see how nice he is? He's all that and just very, very